So MSNBC's Gary Grumbach, he went to Trump's rally over the weekend in Iowa, and he got a chance, like many outlets do, to speak with some of the supporters outside, inside, and around the rally itself, and got an idea of where at least this one particular woman's mindset is when it comes to the civil war in the country. Let's listen.
I think the Republicans are about as weak as they possibly could be in Congress. You have maybe 6 that are worth their salt. Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, and 2 or 3 others. The rest of them are just the same as the Democrats. They've been there too long. They're establishment. They don't care about the American people because they're in their elite little tower. And so we're just sick of it, you know, and we're not gonna take it anymore. I see a civil war coming. I do. I see civil war coming.
So she named a couple names on the Republican side that are only worth their weight in salt, or whatever that term is, and said they're all just like the Democrats. I would have loved to hear her name which Democrats are the ones that are all establishment and that only want to work for the establishment and their donors and don't do anything for the people. I would say AOC, people like that, and then get a chance to really find out who she's talking about. Anyway, that would be a follow-up question. Anyways, so she did say that oh man, you know, we need to start a civil war. Another question, how does that start? I always wonder this, how does that faction break up? We read all these, they don't, but people would read stories about the Civil War in America before and how that came together and how the factions broke up and what it was based on, and there's the leaders from this side, leaders from that side. Where would the leaders break up? Where would people then, I've asked this question, I think it was on TDR. So how does the Civil War start? Random lady in Iowa. Why does it start? And then who decides to just let's have this big battle in the middle of the country because you're upset? It doesn't make any sense, but anyway, that's beside the point. Grumbach then was asked a follow-up question when he was reporting about this situation with the lady there, and he had this to say, his reaction to how they're talking about civil war.
Is that an anomaly, or are you getting a sense that this is what some people all across this country are thinking?
You know, one of the questions I asked some of these folks were, do your friends think this way? Do your neighbors think this way? And they all said yes. And so I think it is really important to get out of Washington, get out of New York, and come to these places in the middle of the country where you are hearing a lot of this.
So you got to come to these places in the middle of the country to hear them say what we just heard them say. And then what? Is it convincing? Is it the majority of the country? Is it true that that these Republicans are all working with Democrats and they're all establishment? Why? Why do people, who's the people? Is it politicians? Is it media people? Is it people who live on the coast should come to the middle of the country and then stand in the middle of that rally and go, why? Then what?
Yeah, well, JR, you're assessing the correct problem here, which is coming both from the voter there and from the reporters too. So let me break it down. The first part of her answer is just a little bit longer video, but you saw some relevant section of it there. She starts out in a way that isn't wrong. She talks about how the majority of the Republican Party is the establishment and they live in an elite tower, etc. That's actually true. The Mitch McConnell camp, which is by far the biggest camp in the Republican Party, is not populist. They're corporate Republicans. But she misinterprets that because conservative media has led her to misinterpreting it as, hey, they're not working for who? Who do they logically work for? The people who sign their checks. No, they're not working for their corporate donors because everyone in right-wing media is financed by those same donors. So they have to trick her and say, oh, they're working with the Democrats. Now, by the way, that's not overly wrong either, because there's a whole wing of the corporate Democratic Party is the corporate Democrats, and that's the largest wing of the Democratic Party. But who are they working with? Well, people like Charlie Kirk say they're all trying to end private property. Someone else in the right-wing circles in the news today said they're all trying to become communists. Why would corporations donate money to Republicans and Democrats to take away their property and their rights and their money? Now, do you think that makes more sense? Or do you think it makes more sense that they gave them money so they could make more money by capturing the government and instituting crony capitalism, where both the Republican and Democratic corporate stooges work for their donors? That makes way more sense. But the right-wing media doesn't want you to know that because they get money from the same exact donors. Now, mainstream media, unfortunately, same thing. I mean, look at this. That's on MSNBC. And so they're sitting there going, oh, you should go, we should go outside the country, outside the coast and check out what the real people say. Yeah, no, first of all, really schmucks? I mean, we've been saying that for 20 years on TYT. And I remember doing a video in Ohio in the 2016 election when we were there to cover the Republican primary going, oh no, Trump's gonna win. I was telling you this on the show. Here we are in Ohio. There's no Hillary Clinton signs for miles and miles, hours and hours. Everybody's pro-Trump. And because we talk to real people, by the way, real people are not just right-wingers. We talk to real left-wing people. We talk to real independents. And yes, the elite media in this country are so inside their bubble. They've never met a real person in their lives. They're like, it turns out that people outside of Washington and New York do not agree that the rich should get everything and that corporations are demigods. Breaking news, did you guys know that? We should step outside the country every once in a while. But even when they do that, JR, they then think real people are just crazy right-wingers. No, did you know, MSNBC, that there's a giant portion of the country that is populist left? They're called progressives. You argue against them in every primary. You should know us by now. We're a giant chunk of the country. And you guys not only do not know about us, again, except when you have to defeat us, right? But you never even consider us the real Americans. Like whenever they talk about quote unquote real Americans, they're like, oh, we should hear out these people who say we should go to civil war to make sure that minorities don't have the same rights as we do. We should hear them out. How about hearing out the left, you schmucks, on a so-called left-wing channel?
When the protests and things are happening for police accountability and justice in 2020 in the summer, and it was everywhere. Folks who never thought they'd be involved in those type of things, young folks, people of all races were involved in that in all these major cities and smaller cities across the country. So this is MSNBC, as you point out. Did you hear Fox News as they were covering it go? So everyone in Tennessee, Missouri, Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma, Indiana, you guys need to find your way to the coast. Because you know what, I talked to several people there, and you know what they all said? They said they can't believe that the people who are paid to protect citizens are killing them indiscriminately, and when they're unarmed, they're not doing anything based off of who they believe they are and what they should do and think they can get away with. Isn't that outrageous? I think you guys should go to the coast and talk to some of these people and see what they're really thinking, because this is a crazy, huge movement. Did Fox News say that? Did the conservative Fox News say, hey, we got to talk about those libs on the coast because they're still humans? You know what Fox News says about the people on the coast? Burn down their buildings. Throwback to Bill O'Reilly talking about the Coit Tower needs to come down. They're fake Americans. They're trying to bring you down. They hate the country. All of them are rich. And they just want to destroy the country as if we don't live here too. They want to take what you have and hoard it and pocket it for them. Is that really how it works? So you have, even when you think people who are watching MSNBC are like, I'm watching the Lib Network, and then they hear things like that, it's still embedded somewhere in the deep parts of our brain that the real Americans are the ones in the middle of the country that are talking about their guns and their secession when it comes to Texas. Oh, we're gonna leave this country. Why is that the respected point of view? There's a network, one of those crazy radical conservative networks called Real America News or something like that. Does anyone, if you hear that name, think that it's a lib publication or a lib network? No. Because you know, only people who say they're the real Americans, quote unquote, are the conservative folks who think that they have this superiority over everyone else, when everything that they follow and go through doesn't actually come up with anything. We've been following this type of political line and movement since forever. And what has it done for regular folks? What has it done for the people who are complaining, like that lady who wants to have a civil war? You think she's doing great? You think she owns multiple businesses and lives in 3 mansions? No, but she thinks that everyone else does.
Yeah, so last couple of things here. Whenever they say real Americans, that's a proxy for race. They mean white people. I got news for you. People who live in Compton are also real Americans. People who live in Bronx are also real Americans. If you think they're not, you're racist. So let's move on, okay? And no, not everybody who lives in New York and LA is rich. In fact, the majority are poor and middle class. The overwhelming majority are poor and middle class, and they're very, very real, and they're definitely Americans, and only racists say that they're not. Charlie Kirk did a video about that. We're going to do that analyze that in the bonus episode for the members. You can check that out at tyt.com/join. Anyway, and you mentioned AOC. It's funny because they'll say, oh yeah, like if you ask them to name a Democrat that is in the elite towers or whatever, they'll say AOC, which again, makes no sense because AOC and the progressives are the ones that don't take corporate PAC money. So they're the least corrupted. But they never heard that from Sean Hannity because Sean Hannity makes $40 million a year from the same companies that give to the corrupt Republicans and the corrupt Democrats. So his job is not only to lie on behalf of Trump and McConnell, but his job is also to lie on behalf of Schumer and Pelosi and make you think the real problem is AOC instead of leadership on both sides. So, and then finally, look, the mainstream media has been a nightmare for this country, supporting the corporate status quo for decades, and they've led to a situation where we don't have universal health care, wages haven't gone up in 40 years, etc. And they never tell you about that, and they never talk about wages never going up. In fact, they fight against you getting health care, etc. But the more you look at it, I know that was a JB crew out there. I have never saw any of those people that we showed there, but it's not about them. They're all little kids, like playing role acting, right? They're like, I am now a reporter, so I have to talk like this. And if you step outside of New York and Washington, you will see the real Americans. Why? Because he learned that when he was a kid, watching Chuck Todd, etc. And now he comes and plays that role. And the anchor's like, oh, this is deeply concerning. I have to act like a robot. Garumph on Civil War. Right?
Yeah.
So they're just kids, man. They don't do real news.
And what the conclusions people would get from that is, look, these folks, these real Americans want to have a civil war because they're so upset. How do we stop them from being so upset? We appease them. So we're afraid of what they're gonna do. Again, we talk about the iron fist and telling people what to do in this country. So the underlying message then is they're mad, you should come listen to them, because then once you listen to them, maybe you can work with them. When are they gonna come to the coast and work with us? When are they gonna listen for a second and be like, oh, wait, you mean I pay money into the system and I don't get anything back? Billionaires pay nothing in the system and get more back? This is crazy. You might understand that you agree more with what these crazy libs that want to destroy your country and be communists and socialists and everything in between all at the same time. That makes no sense if they just listen, ironically, but we listen the other way around, and that's why we're still stuck in the same circle of secession and civil war that we keep talking about.
And that's the MSNBCs, and none of the people in cable news tell you the actual problems in the country, which is corporate rule. That's why she's frustrated, that's why we're frustrated. Last thing is, guys, violence is coming. I hate it. I'm here to warn you about it. I've now warned you about it over and over again. How did I know that Trump was gonna win the Republican primary? How was I deeply concerned that he was gonna win the general election? Because I can read a poll. When 28% of Republicans say that it's time for violence, when 41% of them say we've got to take the law into our own hands, when every Trump supporter you see at a rally says it's time for civil war, at some point they are going to do violence, lots and lots of it. So, and then the mainstream media reporters will go, dear God, no one could have suspected this. Because why? They're too busy doing this thing they were always taught, 50-50, I can't tell. And if anyone's real, it's the right wing. And it enables them and gets them in a state of mind where they think, if you're gonna take my entitlement away, my entitlement of having more rights than you, well then I'm gonna go to violence. Stop enabling them. This is really serious and they're gonna do it. There are a lot of great ways to watch the Young Turks, but is there a best way? Of course, the best way is to watch live. Tune in weekdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. You get our uncensored, unapologetic version of the news that you won't get anywhere else. Watch us live.